On this channel, we provide useful programming information with practical code examples. This time, it's about CSS properties related to code display and quotations. You can learn about the usage and syntax of CSS properties related to code display and quoting, such as white space, quotes, and user select. Enabling subtitles will make the code descriptions easier to understand. Please make use of it. First, let's take a look at the white space property. The white space property is a CSS property that specifies how white space and line breaks are handled within an element. By default, HTML treats multiple spaces as a single space, but the white space property allows you to modify this behavior. Normal is the default value, where multiple spaces are collapsed into one, and lines break automatically. Now wrap collapses spaces into one but prevents line breaks. The content is displayed in a single line. Pre preserves white space and line breaks as they are. Line wrapping does not occur. Pre-wrap preserves white space and line breaks while allowing line wrapping. Pre-line collapses spaces but preserves line breaks, and allows line wrapping. Break spaces preserves spaces and line breaks, while allowing breaks at long words or white space. Next, let's take a look at the overflow wrap property. The overflow wrap property, formerly known as word wrap, defines how words are handled when they exceed the container's width. Using this property, you can properly wrap words to prevent text from overflowing and breaking the layout. In this example, with normal, long words may overflow the container and cause horizontal scrolling, but break word forces long words to wrap. Overflow wrap primarily has two values. Normal is the default value, where the browser follows standard word wrapping rules. Normally, words wrap only at breakable points such as spaces or hyphens. If a word is extremely long, it may exceed the container's width and break the layout. Break word forces a line break if necessary, wrapping text to the next line regardless of word length. This helps prevent the container layout from breaking due to long words. When break word is specified, words wrap even in places without spaces or hyphens to fit within the screen width. This is especially useful for URLs or very long words. Properties similar to overflow wrap include word break and white space. Word break defines how entire words are handled, while overflow wrap only triggers wrapping when a word exceeds the container width. For example, word break all breaks words at any position, even if they are not long, whereas overflow wrap only wraps words when they exceed the container. The white space property controls how line breaks and spaces are handled in the entire text. Unlike overflow wrap, white space defines whether line breaks and spaces are preserved but does not directly affect word wrapping. For example, white space, now wrap, ensures that the entire text remains on a single line without wrapping. On the other hand, overflow wrap controls text wrapping. Overflow wrap is particularly useful in the following situations. Displaying URLs. Prevents layout issues when displaying long URLs. Technical terms. Handles cases where continuous English words or technical terms exceed the container width. Responsive design. Ensures that long text does not break the layout even on small screens. Next, let's look at the quotes property. The quotes property is used to customize quotation marks. Usually, quotation marks are automatically inserted when wrapping the content of block quote or queue elements, but using the quotes property allows you to specify custom quotation marks. In this example, parentheses are used as outer quotation marks. Additionally, nested quotation marks are represented by square brackets. The quotes property can be specified with values like the following. None number quotation marks will be displayed. A series of quotes. Specify the opening and closing quotation marks. The first set represents the outer quotation marks, while the subsequent sets are for nested quotations. The quotes property is a useful property for customizing quotation marks used in text quotations. By setting appropriate quotation marks according to the design and language, you can achieve a more sophisticated page presentation. Using the quotes property provides benefits such as the following. Customize quotation marks. You can change the default shape of quotation marks or set quotation marks tailored to a specific design. Supports nested quotations. You can apply different sets of quotation marks for nested quotations. Customizable by country and language. Easily apply different styles of quotation marks depending on the language or country, which is useful for international websites. Next, let's look at the user select property. The user select property is a CSS property used to control whether users can select text. By using this property, you can prevent text from being copied in specific elements or across the entire page, or conversely make it selectable. If you specify all for the user select property, the entire element is selected at once. For example, when a user clicks on a text field or paragraph, the entire element is selected at once. It can also be used for bulk selection of source code. In this example, the text of the first paragraph is selectable, but the text of the second paragraph is not. In the Select All class, the user select property is set to all, allowing the entire element to be selected at once. The user select property can be specified with the following values. Auto. Use the browser's default behavior. Text selection is allowed on most elements, but may be restricted on some interactive elements like buttons and links. None. Text selection is completely disabled. Users will not be able to select text within that element. Text allows only the text within the element to be selected. All. The entire element is selected at once. Instead of partial selection, the entire element is selected as a whole. Contain, supported only by some browsers. Allows only the element at the clicked location to be selected. The user select property is supported by most modern browsers. However, some browsers may require vendor prefixes such as WebKit user select. The user select property offers the following advantages. UI elements. Disabled text selection to avoid interfering with click or drag operations. Prevent text copying. Prevent text selection and copying on certain elements. Forms and interactive elements. Apply to interactive elements where text selection is unnecessary to enhance the user experience. The user select property is a useful CSS property that allows flexible control over text selection on a web page. It can prevent users from accidentally selecting unnecessary text or allow them to select everything at once, accommodating various interactions. Next, let's take a look at the tab size property. The tab size property is used to customize the space for tab characters. By default, the tab width is usually set to 8 spaces, but it can be adjusted to any value using the tab size property. The tab size property can accept the following types of values. Number specifies the width of the tab character in terms of character count. You can specify either an integer or a decimal. Length specifies the width of the tab character using length units, e.g., px, m. The tab size property is typically used with monospace fonts. When used with proportional fonts, the tab width may become uneven. When specifying the number of characters, be mindful of scaling on different devices. Using the tab size property enhances flexibility when displaying code or tab characters. As a developer, properly setting the tab width ensures code readability and design consistency. Next, let's take a look at the text indent property. The text indent property is used to indent the first line of text in a block element by a specified distance. This property allows you to style only the first line of a paragraph. The text indent property can accept the following types of values. Length specifies the indentation using length units, e.g., px, m. Percentage specifies the indentation as a percentage based on the width of the container element. Text indent applies only to block elements. It has no effect on inline elements. The text indent property is a simple yet powerful tool for creating readable text designs. By mastering the basics and understanding advanced use cases and considerations, you can style more effectively. The source code for this video can be downloaded from the official website. If you like, please visit the URL in the description to aid your learning. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to the channel and look forward to the next video.